G'day, everybody, and welcome to the ScaleHQ podcast. I have such a great episode for you today with a friend of mine and successful entrepreneur, Ant Botica. He's known as the Superyacht Guy in my circles because he runs an amazing business called Solamoré, which is a unforgettable events experience company that runs these incredible charters in multiple countries on these super yachts. Incredible business, wonderful guy. But the story is such an interesting one because it was 14 years before his business started to take off. And that was multiple different iterations of different businesses before I actually found the one that felt right and the one that made the most sense and where things actually just kind of clicked and came together. So this is really a story of grit, but it's also a story about how to build a brand around unforgettable experiences. And it really makes me step back and reflect. Are you creating an unforgettable experience for your customers? At what level? Because that's actually the thing that made his entire business build. Yes, it's a live retreat event style business, but actually the level of the experience, which had customers going, wow, is the thing that turned this into a referral only driven business. It is growing like gangbusters. It's growing very healthily, 30% year on year. So they're still, up and coming, and they're a scaler. But all of that's coming from referrals. Why? Because he creates unforgettable experiences. And I think there's really something interesting for you to listen to today, both in the story of the grit and also the story of this live experience brand that you can take into your business about where are there the opportunities to create real wow factors that your customers would rave about. I hope you really enjoyed listening to this conversation today. I really had a lot of fun with Ant bringing it together for you, and enjoy. Welcome to the ScaleHQ podcast, your weekly injection of tips and insights into the secrets of scaling. I'm your host, Steele, and I am obsessed with figuring out how to help founders just like you who are creating real value in the world to scale up so they can fulfill their potential. I do that each week by interviewing founders who successfully scaled, experts in all the areas of business that you need to master, interviews with founders who are still on the way up, and 10-minute tutorials and reflections from me based on my experiences in creating $100 million in revenue for 4 other companies over 8 years. So let's dive in and see what gems we can find together on this week's episode of the ScaleHQ podcast. G'day, everybody, and welcome back to our regular listeners to the ScaleHQ podcast, and to anyone, if you are joining us for the first time, welcome. Super excited to have you. Very grateful that you're here. You have an awesome guest this week, and I have been looking forward to this podcast. It is with Ant Botica, the founder of Solamoré and many other things. Solamoré is an experiential events company focused on facilitating connection, personal growth, lifelong memories, and I think this is probably the catchphrase for you, Ant, unforgettable experiences. You bring people together, and I would say, yes, we might know you as founder of Solamoré, but we might also affectionately call you the Superyacht Guy, and perhaps we'll explain why we call you the Superyacht Guy. How are you, mate?
Good. Thanks for having me, Sean. Excited to be here.
My pleasure. So good to have you here. So maybe a bit of a context for our audience, because you're going to go, wow, these guys sound a bit familiar with each other. Ant and I know each other. We are both nomads at heart. I've lived in, 25 houses now, probably since I was born, like Argentina and Switzerland and all over Australia, and now moved to Cyprus. And you grew up in New Zealand, but you oscillate between Dubai and Croatia and New Zealand. And you've also had some crazy careers prior to Solamoré, which I'm going to ask you about. But we got introduced, I guess it was beginning of 23 maybe, because I sold off our portfolio in Australia, needed a fully furnished rental to move into in the Sunshine Coast before we moved to Cyprus. Found ourselves in this beautiful property on the Sunshine Coast, met your gorgeous wife, Annika, and she said to me, you've got to meet my husband, Ant. You guys are going to get on like a house on fire. So you and I met, and we knew like immediately that we were brothers from another mother. The bromance evolved. We probably chat every week. We message, and we are actually getting to play in the sandpit together in this global mastermind model that we put together this year, which I think we'll maybe chat briefly about at the end. But I'm super excited. I'm loving getting to know you, and you've had such an interesting entrepreneurial journey, and your business is going really well, but you've had such an interesting career of businesses and different things that you've done before that, which I really want to talk to you about today, like learnings from the current business, because it's a very unique business I think people can learn a lot about, but also the stuff you did prior, because it hasn't always been such smooth sailing. It hasn't been a straight path, I would say. Is that okay for a setup? Have I missed anything major that you think we should include to clue people into how we got here?
That's pretty good. I don't know if I should have told everybody about the bromance, but it's okay. It's out there now.
Too late. Too late. Now, before you got into Solamoré, you have done some pretty interesting and varied things since you left the corporate world in banks, of all places. I can't believe you were ever in banks, but anyway. Can you tell me a bit briefly, tell our audience about the journey and then how that sort of evolved into Solamoré?
Yeah, I'll try and it's a long one because I'm 42 now, and so it was quite a journey. Took a long time to get here, but it was a good time. I left the bank because I went to Croatia and saw where my parents were from and this tiny little village, and I just saw a simple life. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew what I didn't want to do. And well, I did know what I wanted to do. I wanted to go back to Croatia every year. I didn't know how I was going to do that, but I knew that staying in the bank wouldn't allow me to do that. So I'd have to leave. And so I recorded a little video of myself, and I said, "This is where you feel best. This is the best you've ever felt." At the time, recording this video, I think I was maybe like 23 years old. Promised to come back here for myself every year so that I can keep like refilling my soul, was the words that I used. And then I went back and sort of, I guess, young enough and naive enough to just quit my job after like maybe a month or two of trying to figure out different business plans, and thought it'd be super easy, of course. And I was like, okay, I need to start something that I can do online that's going to allow me to be able to move around the world and be where I want to be and spend summer to summer. I was all about like, let's follow the sun. And it's been like half a year in Croatia, half a year in New Zealand. And so what does everybody need that I can do online? Well, everybody needs, in New Zealand, you have to get this automotive, what is it? It's called a warrant of fitness. It's like a checklist for your car. You're safe to be on the road, basically. And it costs like $50 at the time. I knew a bunch of mechanics, and I spoke to those mechanics, and I said, could I create like a loyalty voucher for this, promote your business? Because they're all small independent guys. And I'll bring customers into your door. Did a bit of research and found out what the cost of to acquire one customer to come in the door was for them. And most of them didn't know because they're such small businesses, but it was around about that dollar amount, around about $50. So I said, how about I'll bring everybody in for free and do all your marketing services, put you part of a larger brand and make it, just make it look polished. Because these guys were great. They were cool operators. They were small ma and pa stores, but they just couldn't market well, and they just didn't have the capacity to do so. So I pulled that together, and I thought it would happen really quickly. I was like, oh, great, I'm going to start making some money fast. And no, it took, I remember a friend of mine who was sharing an office with me was like, it's going to take 3 to 4 times longer than you think. And I was like, no, not me, not this business. The business is different. Selling loyalty cards online, it'll catch on really quickly. It's like a no-brainer. And yeah, I just chipped away at it. All of my savings went down to next to nothing. Almost lost my house. 2008 came along, and it saved me actually because the interest rates dropped considerably. Like I think I was on 9 point something percent at that point, and so I was just like I remember every month.
I remember that
every month coming along, and it was like a karate chop to the throat when I had to make that payment, and I maxed out all my credit cards, and then one day, the tipping point happened, and I went over to Croatia again. I continued. This is probably why the business took so long to actually make $1 as well, as I continued to go over every year. And I didn't have any knowledge, any skills about how to start a business, what systems to use. I didn't know anything. I was just trying to figure it out. Didn't have any mentors, and I kept on going back. And when I went back one year, it was crazy. I promised myself I'd go back. I went with €40 in my pocket, and I remember sleeping on a boat. Which I just pulled in, like a little tiny, like a dinghy that I pulled in one night just to sleep on that because I didn't have any money for accommodation. And then the business hit this little tipping point where like the first sale came in. It was like $40. It was $40. It came in, I remember it. And I was just like, $40. It's like almost exactly like as much as I traveled with. And then like Groupon and Grab One.
I doubled my
Oh,
money.
it was amazing, honestly. It was just so, but there was a moment where I saw, okay, it's possible, you know? Okay, this works. So I was asleep and that $40 came in. And so it was quite an important moment in my life. And then Groupon and Grab One, which was, I don't know if they have Grab One around the world, but they did in New Zealand, but Groupon came along and I decided to put it on there. And then it just caught on like wildfire, and not that I was making much, but all of a sudden from having nothing for a couple of years every week to, $3,000 a week coming in, something like that. I was like, whoa, I am rich. This is great. And it wasn't every week. It was more like a month, actually. It was like $3,000 a month. And, but that was a lot for me, because I'd learned to live off of nothing, I was just living off fumes, and I was quite comfortable doing that. And so then that was great. That started ticking along. There's no passion there for me, really. Passion, that was my baby, my business. But, once it started ticking along, I was just like, what do I actually want to do? I'm on this journey to figure this out, because the village in Croatia kept reminding me, find something, that your heart and soul is all about, because I just saw the simplicity of life, and knew what it meant to be just happy and fulfilled. And I was like, no matter what, I'm just going to don't know what that is, but I'm going to keep trying things until I find it and keep moving. And so then, how did this happen? I started watching that movie 300, and it was, King Leonidas is in these big battles, and it's an epic movie. And I used to watch that, I think, I don't know, I reckon once a week at one point. I don't know, I just had heaps of time on my hands, because the business was online, that was sort of doing its thing. And of course, I didn't have much money, but enough to just, to make do. And I was watching this movie now. So I saw this scene. It's a slow motion scene. It's so powerful. And, King Leonidas is like small, tiny little army of 300, and they're battling like this giant Persian army in a slow motion scene. I just thought to myself, I want to be in that movie. I want to be in that scene. I want to be King Leonidas. And I was just like, how do I do that? So I started dating this girl, and she was working in film and TV. And she said, I could intro you to a couple of people. And I was like, okay, all right. I didn't even know that existed really in New Zealand, that film and TV industry, not movies like that. And she introed me to a couple of people, but nobody really wanted to help. Because who is this guy? You're a banker, mate. You're not a stuntman. But that's what I wanted to do. I was like, I want to be a stuntman, and in that scene. And so, one guy that gave me 20, 30 minutes of his time, he said, you need to do a whole bunch of disciplines and get good at them, like horse riding and sword fighting, and some mixed martial arts, and get your paddy diving certificate, and do some fighting for film and some fire stunts, and a big list of things. And so I started doing all these things. I was just like, okay, cool. I found some guy that was teaching people how to sword fight with these legit katana swords. They're super sharp. It was so dangerous and scary. And then I started, my ex-girlfriend sister was top of New Zealand in teaching equestrian. And she knew a guy, she taught his wife, and he taught people how to do horse vaulting, which is spinning around on gymnastics on a horse, basically. And so I started doing this, riding a horse backwards, learning how to, mount the horse while it's in a trot or a canter even, and, how to dismount off a horse while it's moving, and I had some great injuries doing that. And then, I just started meeting people and just started doing things. I was quite good at gymnastics, but not great. But when I created the CV, I just put all these things that I'd been training in. And I was doing mixed martial arts, and I did some fighting for film, and just wrote all these things down. I just didn't say how long I'd been doing them for, and this the girl that I was dating at the time submitted it into this I think it's a film called Legend of the Seeker. It's like a Walt Disney series, actually. And Spartacus was coming to New Zealand as well. I was like, oh my gosh, Spartacus. Well, that's pretty much 300 King Leonidas. Imagine if I could get on there. And it was just perfect timing. Sometimes things take ages, and sometimes there's perfect timing, that just fortune that comes your way. And obviously putting yourself in the place. You have to be there and see the opportunity. Yeah, I submitted that, and the stunt industry, it's so rare they take on new guys. Because it's when there's not much work there, then you don't want to have a lot of stunt guys there. You want to keep it a small knit group
Yeah.
type group.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anybody either. But they had auditions. I think it was the first time they ever had auditions. There was like 100 guys that went to this audition, and myself and 2 other guys got in, and we're still really great friends. And then
Wow.
from there, I just didn't mess up. Like, I sucked. I was terrible. The guys that are stunt guys are, SAS guys,
Career
Moscow
professionals.
Circus performers and stuff like that. These guys are like ninjas, full parkour runners. And it was,
Yeah.
I didn't really belong there, but I brought a good energy into the place, and the guys sort of kept me on board, and sort of found my way in. And so then got to be on all these great movies and got a nomination for a Screen Actors Guild Award and just all these crazy things. But that was another pivotal point. And sorry, this is a long story. And getting to Solamoré, because that showed me, the first business showed
And sorry, just to interrupt you for 1 second,
Yeah.
because I am really keen to make sure that we've got time to ask you about Solamoré. So
Cool.
might have to give me the truncated version of the next stages.
Sure. But that was a massive thing, because it showed me that you can actually do whatever you want to do. You can, like, if a banker can become a stuntman, and I can make money online. I've seen that. Like, I can actually do it. My mum told me that you could do whatever you want to do, and maybe you can. Seems like you can. So then, like, what am I going to shoot for next? And then I tried a whole bunch of different businesses, and again, I just kept trying things, and started an educational course in Australia. My cousin teaching stocks and options, which was his thing, and what else did I try? I had an SEO business at one point, Sean. And just keep trying things until I found it. And in Solamoré, I jumped on a yacht. I tried a few things on land with just travel and tourism. What can I do there? I wanted to build something in Croatia to force me to keep going back. That was the whole premise behind it. Let's build something so that when I have a wife one day, when I have a family one day, we have no choice but to go there, So because I'd seen lots of people that everyone wanted to go, all of my cousins, etc., but it was so hard to go back every year. Life gets in the way, and you're busy, and you're just going, I'm going next year, but then 5 years passed, 10 years passed. So I was like, got to start something in Croatia. And tried a whole bunch of things, different businesses on land, little retreat type things, because I wanted to introduce like the heart and soul element. I wanted to provide people this feeling that I had, because it was so powerful. It changed my life. I'd otherwise still be at the bank, and I was an unhappy version. There's nothing wrong with the bank, but it just didn't suit me. And I was just an unhappy version of myself, when I look back.
Yeah.
And so one day hopped on a sail yacht, and sun, now sea, which is just like expansiveness and like freedom, and that feeling was intensified. And you get to move around all the islands so easily now. And I was like, and we just had a magic group of people on board. It was like a floating bucket. This was the smallest, tiniest, cheapest little yacht, and we had the best week ever. And the feeling that we had was what really stuck. And Facebook had sort of just started up, and we just, people saw our photos, but more so than that, people saw our energy when we came back from that. And then next year there was 2 boats, and then there was 4, and then there was 8, and then it started to become a bit of a mission, because I didn't have the systems in place, or didn't know about how to do this, and it was like a business that was on the other side of the world from where I was. So there was a whole bunch of challenges that started to come in. But that's how I got to Solamoré.
Wow. I mean, that is an incredible that's an incredible journey. I saw a LinkedIn post yesterday from a friend of mine, Ben Handler, on LinkedIn, and his comment was, why don't you build your business around the lifestyle that you want to have, rather than build a business and then hope that you'll fit the lifestyle that you want sort of over the top of it or around it. That's exactly what you've done, which is super interesting and really inspirational for a lot of people. And I love the fact that you've had to hustle through all these different businesses, just looking for the right thing, but achieving and learning things along the way that have given you the confidence to get to Solamoré. So why don't you give us a quick summary then of, like, who is Solamoré? Like who is the customer that you're serving? Like what is it you are trying to create for them or help them achieve? Like, why is it they come to you?
Cool. Well, it's 100% referral business at this stage. So it's only, and I know why people are coming now. It's because of the feeling that they get. That feeling that I'm trying to, like, recreate that I had. But who it's for, it's people that just want to create an exceptional event with a bunch of people, like 30 to 36 people. But that's hard to do, like organizing that in another country, or like I don't know if anyone's organized a family trip before, it's difficult. There's a lot of admin involved, and it just takes out all of the fun for you. So that's what we do. We just like make it super easy for people to organize a group of 16, 17 couples or a family trip reunion or a networking group. We have a lot of different networking type businesses that come and do their events on there, but they get a lot more than that exceptional event. It ends up, the connection element you can't see on the videos, and you can't see the love that's created on these trips and the opportunities that come from it and the perspective changes that happen. The yachts, yeah, it's cool to be on a yacht. Yachts are sexy, but they give a lot more than that. It sort of puts everybody in one boat, and it's on these just expansive seas, and you're in another country, like far away from your thoughts that you have at home and your habits that you have at home. And so then, once you felt that, then you come back, or you go back home and you tell other people about it, and you're buzzing, and then more people come. And so that's how we've done that, and that's who our customers are. But they're actually our friends now. Like, I have to say, like, when I look at our database, just got so much love for so many people on there because just the magic that happens.
It's amazing. It really brings the best in people, but there's a very big difference. You've used some words in there that I think really will resonate with people. There are plenty of people that can go. There are plenty of event organizations that organize, let's call them junkets. It might be in an amazing place. It might be a cool group of people that you get to go with. But actually the way the event's organized, the conversations that you get into, the heart that you feel like you sort of authentically integrated into the place that you're actually visiting, or is it really pretty vanilla and transactional? And I think, and I'm wondering what you've learned about how to communicate that to people, because they're such intangibles, right? It's like, oh, well, I went on another yacht trip and it was okay, but it was all about, we got to use the stand-up paddle boards and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, no, it's not just about the activities. It's not just about the boat. It's not just about all these ingredients. It's like how the ingredients come together and how they create the right connectivity and how they create the right conversation and how they create the right mind space that ends up in this, 1 + 1 + 1 = about 25. That creates a peak experience that people run home and tell everybody about, that your business has grown off the back of referrals. How have you thought about communicating that? How do you try to get that across to people if someone comes at you with a, hey, I've been referred in, but actually I don't really get it. I mean, it seems like everyone raves about it, but I still don't get it. It's just a boat, isn't it? Like a boat with some cabins, and you get on it and I know you have a few drinks.
Yeah. I'll have a call with them, and you can feel my passion when I'm talking about it. And when you start explaining the connection between not just the people on board, but with the crew. We've got the boat. We've just picked a nice boat. We picked a boat where the crew's our family, and they mix, well with all of our guests. And then we take our guests not just to a restaurant that's on the main Riviera. We'll take them, we put so much effort in. We'll take them up into the hills to a small abandoned village where you have to know the family there to book a place, and the family, the dad's on the barbecue, and mum and the daughter are cooking and serving, and then the son and his friends are singing for us, and then we teach the guests how to dance these Croatian or Greek dances, and the family will come and join us too, and it's just pulling everybody together, and that's how do I communicate that? I don't know. I don't know. I'll have that conversation. It's hard to communicate it, and that's what I'll always say. You have to just feel it, and yeah, I could guess through my excitement and through my energy on the call. Hopefully, they understand or feel a little piece of that. But it's just I just tell them, you can the videos and photos are beautiful, but it doesn't even nearly do it justice. They're all polished and look great, but it's so much better.
Yeah, it's so much more. And I guess that's what they get through the referral from others, right? Is because they actually get
Yeah.
the person doing the explaining for you, which is why the business. And so, can you just talk to or just to give the audience a sense of like, where is the business at? This is one boat that's being sort of hired out for the whole season, but it's got 17 or 18 cabins on it. Is that right? Like, what's the size of the business? What revenue or customer numbers
Yeah.
or something that you're happy to share to give people just a sense of the
Sure.
current scale?
Yeah, we have a few boats that we run through the season, and it's not for the entire season. So we will mostly be doing peak season, which is June, July, August, September, in Croatia and Greece, and this year starting in
Mm-hmm.
Montenegro. So we're between three countries. Looking
Yeah.
at starting in Dubai, of course, as well. So just doing our research here. So we're between three countries, soon to be four. And boat wise, yeah, we're running pretty much all season. So through the peak season. So June, July, August, September. Because it's referral, I haven't found the groups that come in shoulder season, which is typically the oldies. All the oldies are coming through there. So because this business has grown with me, and it's all networks really. So yeah, I just haven't found those oldies yet, but I'm getting older every year, so I'll get there.
And so what about like the numbers of people that are
Yeah.
coming in a year, or just to give people a sense of the
Sure, sure,
size of the
sure. Yeah, we
business?
get around about 400 people a year that'll come, but that's in a 3.5 month period. So
Mm-hmm.
we're growing. We're like growing around about 30% extra per year, and that should probably, I think, it should
Yeah.
definitely accelerate even more so than that now, because we've just done a few key hires within the business, and have finally removed myself as the giant bottleneck.
Well, I was actually going to ask you, this is sometimes when you're thinking about scalability, and I'd love to come back to what your actually let me go back to that first. What is your vision for this business? So if you think out, 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, like what do you imagine Solamoré becoming in the future? Do you have a particular ambition for it? Or are you just letting it sort of evolve organically? Where do you want it to see
Yeah,
it go?
a little bit of the organically is definitely there, but there's always a vision. All of this has come through has come to life through a vision. Like everything that I've visualized has happened, So I know the vision is important. Um, I see it being like, it's three countries now to be four soon. I see it being like quite global ultimately, and people will just be like going from Solamoré experience to Solamoré experience because of just the richness of these events. And every year we are just, the key thing is, first of all, not making it global. That'll happen. I have no doubt in that. But it's how every year, how do we just lift this experience to another level? Like I want to be wowed. That's the litmus test. And every year I'm going back, and I'm on most of these trips. And am I still loving it? Yeah, better believe it. Am I excited about this season and what we've got set up? And is it going to blow last season out of the water? Yeah, it is, definitely. And so that's the core focus. Like, let's just keep just making this thing as epic as possible. And the reason why we're in different countries now is because people are asking. We've got people that have been like 7, 8, 9, 10 times on our trips, and they're like,
Wow.
and what else have you got? We're going somewhere else. We'll keep coming back if we have to, but have you got something else? And so that's why the other countries are coming into play. I'm just like, let's just build the best thing we can, knowing what we know and knowing what we love and what people are asking for. And yeah, as long as we keep that, not even that quality the same, as long as we keep lifting that quality, I don't think growing is going to be an issue. But yeah, ultimately, I see it as being, quite a relatively large global business, but still intimate. Got to keep that intimacy. Yeah,
Yes,
for
yes, that's
sure.
the heart of it, isn't it? And we've chatted before about to start with, as you sort of mentioned, you were in
Hmm.
smaller boats, and you had a higher number of smaller boats, but then all of a sudden you made a shift to a much larger vessel. Talk to me about that, like at that moment, because it seemed like it was quite pivotal in the trajectory shift in your
Yeah, there's two
business.
things that sort of happened there that really made the business grow. One was, those little boats became painful. First of all, they were, the margins were small, and but they were great back in the day when I was young, because they were like, it was all the party boats, and it was super fun. I was loving it. It was great, and that's just what I wanted to do. And so we're doing those. But then as that started to grow, I was just like, whoa, you got all of these boats out on the water. And I was still young. I didn't have the right systems to be able to cope with that, or the right people to help. But you can just imagine you've got all these boats out on the water, all these skippers to communicate to, and you didn't have a large boat where you could have 10, 12, 14 staff on board, to help. There's just one guy on there, a skipper. And that skipper's usually like, skippers are pretty chilled people. They're not that good at being like, punctual and crossing the T's and dotting the I's. They are when it comes to the safety of the boat, but so that became pretty tough. And I actually started to not enjoy the business in Croatia at that point. I was like, no, I'm destroyed, or I'm destroying the thing I love the most. Oh, and that wasn't good, So, and I was conscious of that. I thought, while in advance that might happen, I was like, oh, it's happened. All right, how do I make this change? And it was through a bad situation, not a bad situation, but a situation where I had someone wanting one of these big boats, and I was out of my depth and couldn't help them as quickly as I should have been able to. And they sort of just blew up on me and were just like, this is not good enough, blah, blah. And I was just like, mate, I can't help you anymore, not when you're speaking to me like that. And I had this big boat sort of just sitting there that was going to be inevitably chartered out to somebody else and not to me. And I was speaking to a friend of mine about this, and he goes, well, you can fill the boat. Why don't you fill that boat? And I was like, oh, I guess so. I guess I could. Maybe. I was like, man, it's a massive, massive deposit. Basically, all the money I had, I'd have to put on that, on that boat, that one boat. Just giant deposit. Okay. All right, let's do it. Yeah, all right. We've gambled everything before. I've come this far. Boom, there you go. Lock it in. And that boat filled up. And it was not, and then it was so much easier with all those staff on board and everybody in one place and one PA system, and not being on the sea, like on the sea, like on these small sail yachts. You become you become a salty sea dog, a pirate after a while, and it was luxurious, and it was like the margins were far better, and it all made sense, and I was like, okay, cool, well, this is it. And then I'd also, not long after, decided, this was the other catalyst, that this is it. This is what I want to do. This is what I love. Let's put 110% into this. Until then, I'd just been putting in a foot here, a foot there, a foot here, and trying hard at everything for sure. But nothing felt like it was, part of me and my path forwards. And this definitely did now. Now that I'd gotten rid of that pain, I was just like, yes, I could see the light, and this was it. And then the following year, I went from one of those big ones to something like 5 or 6. It was ridiculous, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've done it. It's taken me 14 years, but I now have a business that's making money, like some decent money. And then COVID hit, and that year didn't go ahead. And it was just the most beautiful, ironic rug pull I've ever seen in my life. Just after all of that, like just
Everything finally
came together and just all fell apart. Like before I even got to have that one season, like that. So yeah, that's another story. But we made it through,
How do you think about, so, post COVID, the business has obviously bounced back, and I, from everything from other people I know in the travel industry or related, the demand's come back stronger than ever because of course everyone was all cooped up and they all want experiences, and they all want in-person experiences. How do you think about the risk of another COVID or the risk of another, like how do you could ultimately, That's a problem for a business like
Mm-hmm.
yours that is still all in-person retreat based. How do you think about
Bring it
that at the
on.
moment?
What else have you got? What else you got? Man, it took me 14 years to get there. Then you throw COVID at me. What else you got? Come on, I got it. No problem. Bring it on. Whatever. I'll adapt. I'll
I love
survive,
it.
and
I
everything
love
will be fine, as it always has been. No need to freak out about it. It was quite funny actually because I had two things, two things on my business plan for Solamoré that things that could pull this business down pre-COVID, and it's crazy that I put it in there, but I had war and I had pandemic, and I was just like, neither of those two things are going to happen, not anytime soon.
it. Yeah.
So it's quite funny that I put them there. I don't think I'm going to write those things down anymore. But yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah.
If something else comes up, we've got bigger problems to worry about. If there's like a war that comes along that stops stops us from operating in multiple countries, and that's why also having multiple countries is great because it's the diversification there. But if it's like a global
Bit of a
war,
hedge.
or
Yeah.
a pandemic, I've got bigger problems to worry about than the business. So I'm not fearful at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually like, after what I've been through and the journey being so long and just having so much faith and courage in myself and getting through it. I'm like, okay, what else you got? I don't want it to come, but if it does,
I love that.
yeah.
Of course. I think it's so valuable to have been through it because, or to have been to any point where you've been like put up against the wall, because actually it tells you a lot about yourself and how your capacity to come back out, swinging into, to deal with the impact. And I think it also makes you a little more conscious about, how big your fixed costs are in your business and what things might have like material constraints or big contracts or big legal risks that you can't get out of if something like that happens. And you tend to build with a bit more variable cost in nature, like always,
Mm-hmm.
bit more prepared, I think, for big disruption. One of the things I'm interested in though is there's a lot of service founders listening to the show today, but most of them don't do a sort of it's not a super live event experience type model, but you have built this really peak experience, live experience brand. And I'm interested to know what you think other service founders can learn from that, given it might be quite a different kind of transaction that they're dealing with, a different kind of customer relationship. What do you think that they can learn from what you have built?
It's when you're talking service, it's a people business, right? It's people, and you're going to have to love what you do and figure out a way to love what you do. Change it if you need to. Like I was starting to lose the love for what I did when I had a whole bunch of those small yachts. So I made a change, and then boom, the love was back. And there's no way that you can be in a service industry and doing great, I don't think. Well, you're not doing great if you're not loving it. Maybe the business is performing well. Who cares? I've got a lot of people, I have a lot of business owners that come on the boats, etc., and a lot of friends that are entrepreneurs. If you're not loving what you're doing, that sucks. You're never really gonna do great. And maybe the business does great, but if you're not loving it, that's tough. So you got to love what you do. Change something. You got into it probably for a reason that there was something that resonated with you within that business. And if you find what you love, then that comes through into the business, and then it comes through into the people you're serving as well. So yeah, it sounds like it's not great. It doesn't feel like it's very structured business advice. And I always say that it always sounds a bit fluffy,
No,
but it's the love. If you love what you do, you're winning.
well, the other thing that I heard you say about even the way that your business grows, I think one of the traps of scaling and one of the issues in growth for a lot of founders is in circumstances where they don't have a way of, well, they can get lost essentially in building the machine. I guess it's the easy way to say that. They might start, they start a business, they're probably the only one, they build a great experience, et cetera, et cetera. The business starts working, they get past $1 million, they've got a bit of team. And then somewhere between that sort of 1 and 10 million journey, they end up getting very consumed by the building of the business and the feeding of the machine and the feeding the people, and actually their connectivity to the customer what the actual product and service is delivering, whether it's as good as it can possibly be, whether it's solving that problem or achieving that goal better than the competition, they lose that. And they end up with real issues where actually, their fixed cost of building and all their cost of building and everything's about sales and marketing, but actually who's focused on leveling up the experience? Like, is there someone who cares as much as the founder did about how to make that experience better than it was last time? And I heard that in your growth strategy essentially is make sure every single one of those events is better and a next level up than the last one, because actually your customers do the marketing for you. So that's number one priority for you to be able to scale, is actually being able to control the quality of the experience, which is what I heard in moving from those smaller boats to the bigger boats is, yes, it was logistically far easier, but actually your ability to control the quality of the experience went up tenfold when you had one boat rather than 10 boats. Less people to deal with, therefore could get higher quality people with more influence over how it was delivered, etc. So I think that's a really interesting takeaway for service founders. When was the last time you really looked at the way that you're delivering your service to your customers, and is it at the level that you would expect it to be, and is it continuing to level up based on what your customers are looking for better than somebody else? Because the growth is going to stall if somebody else is actually doing this better than you. So that has to be the start. You have been through a lot of just so many different chapters in your life, and I'm wondering whether it's in Solamoré or whether it's some of the advice that you received that actually helped you get through the different chapter changes, because you would have had lots of up and downs over that. What's the advice, or what's a piece of advice that really stuck with you that sort of comes to mind that you've received? Why is it a good piece of, like, where did it have impact? Why did it help you?
The guy who told it to me has done really well, a friend of mine in New Zealand, and he said to me, it always takes longer than you think. It always takes 2 to 3 times longer, 4 times longer than you think. And the reason why that's such good advice is that it means, like, knowing that you're more likely to persevere, you get more likely to continue, knowing that it's going to take longer, instead of, starting that business or getting that, wherever your business is at, even growing it to a certain size, just be prepared that it's going to take longer. And if you are prepared for that, then you're much more likely to follow through and not be frustrated or give up. What I've seen is that everything that you persevere with, you succeed at. And sometimes it's faster, like the stunts thing was super fast. Sometimes it's longer. Solamoré, 14 years. So yeah, everything takes longer than you think. That was the best advice, really. But I look at it from the positive side of, if you stick to it, you'll get there.
Yeah. And I think there's another something that bubbled up for me when you said that was also that it can impact the way you plan. Because if you're making the assumption that it's going to take longer, it tends to reduce the let's go all in on this thing and let's stack up the cost massively. We do a huge campaign, and like all of a sudden you put all the pressure on it working really quickly. May have built up actually too much cost, which makes you retract much faster because you're trying to wind everything back if it's not quite working fast enough. So if you're taking a longer view on how it should take to build, you'll probably also manage the sort of investment profile of how you build behind the initiative or the product or the service better as well. It's really interesting. What about the worst advice you've received? Whether you've taken it and acted on it and then thought that was terrible advice, or that you've heard people kind of chant but you think is completely wrong. What's the worst advice you've received?
Go home. Get a job. Worst advice. Give up. Give up. Who says that?
Yeah.
Oh man, lots of people that love you say that, because they want the best for you. And if you've been trying something for 14 years and you're getting close to 40, which I was at the time, still not making any money, pandemic comes along, man, it's a good excuse, and you can just give up now, And if I had of, I can't imagine if I had of. My gosh, the contrast. That was probably the worst advice. I didn't take it, but I think that was the worst advice. Never tell anybody to give up. Keep going.
That's so true, isn't it? And as you said, they're all doing it for your best. They believe it's for the best for you because they want to protect you from pain. But yet they don't know what's on the other side of that.
That's where it's all at. That's where it's at. Now I'm so drawn to discomfort because good stuff is right there.
I think, what's it called? There's that graph called the entrepreneur's journey or something like that. And it starts with that you got this great idea and you have uninformed
Yeah,
optimism where you're like, oh, this is going to be amazing. It's going to be so easy. I'm going to kill it. And then you realize it's actually really hard and it's a lot harder than you thought. It's take a lot longer than you thought, a lot more money than you thought. And you're in this sort of informed pessimism. And then you end up in the valley of despair because you are just in the grind and it's hard and it's not working. And you have this choice of, do I go back and look for the new thing, like go back and get a job or try the next thing and just bail? Or do I actually keep pushing through that because the results have to be on the other side of it? And maybe they will or they won't be, but actually, if you don't stick it out, you don't ever give it the opportunity to get through to the other side. Super interesting.
I've been through that curve many times. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely one to watch out for. Last question for you, Ant, that I've got is, if you had your time over at Solamoré, would you have done anything differently?
Not much, because it's all such a good story now, and life's all about stories, and those lessons that you learn through those eras are the best ones. Like they stick. Hopefully they stick. Well, they will eventually, because it'll keep hitting you on the head till you learn. But I think a mentor, if I had a mentor or someone to guide me, like that's what I'd change. I didn't have anyone. It's probably why it took 14 years, is that I was just trying to figure out everything myself. There's no need to do that. Yes, there's a lot of people that have been there before you. Might not be the exact same thing, but most businesses are similar in aspects, in many aspects. And so if I had some advice, or someone mentoring me, oh my gosh, that would have helped a lot. Yeah, that's what I'd change. Yeah. And also being focused 110% on one thing once I knew. And I guess I did do that in the end. But, you got to be focused. You got to be clear. And if you've got someone to help you, oh my gosh, that would have been great. Yeah, did it all by myself. It was tough.
Yeah. It helps you avoid some avoidable pains, doesn't it? Like there are going to be natural things that you're going to face, and that mentor can just help you sometimes cut out a few of those options. They may not have the perfect answer for you. It's still got to be your answer for you, but they can often present the set of options and go, maybe I wouldn't go down this path or with this decision because actually this is probably the likely outcome, but you should still make your own decision. I love that.
Where were you, Sean? I needed you, mate. I needed you, mate. Where the hell were you?
Oh, man, do you know what I loved the most is actually every successful business owner I know, every one of them without fail has got a mentor currently and has had mentors along the way. Every single one of them that succeeds has found people around them too, and they never get too proud to ask for help. It's such a powerful and beautiful thing about life. And usually people that have had some success in something love to share, love to give back. So be unafraid of, if you're listening to this today and you're thinking, geez, I really need a mentor, be unafraid of reaching out to someone that you respect and actually asking them for help and asking them to engage with you, because you'll be amazed at who will say yes. You and I are at the moment playing with this. We've got this great I'm so fortunate because you and I will be together in Croatia and Montenegro in the next couple of months. We have this amazing group of founders that we've got around us. We've got 6 founders in a sort of pilot model that we're playing this year, this sort of global mastermind forum, which is kind of like, I guess, a peer advisory board for founders, particularly those who maybe don't live in capital cities, or those who travel a lot, or those who want a global group of sort of peer support, not necessarily a localized one, and who want to integrate a once-in-a-lifetime experience with that group, not some other boozy junker, but something meaningful, something rich, something authentic. We kicked this thing off by me sort of bringing together the mastermind element, and you brought this incredible retreat element. We're sort of figuring our way out through it this year, but maybe we'll have something to launch next year. If there's people listening who want to maybe have a chat about that later on in the year, or you want to put your name down and be on a wait list, we can let you know when something's ready approved. It's always going to be application based. You never just buy it online, because we've got to make sure that it's the right magic in the right groups, the right people. But if you want to chat about it more or hear about it more as it sort of evolves, you can hit Ant up on LinkedIn, or myself, direct message. You can get me on email, sean@scalehq.com.au. But yeah, we can keep you posted as this beautiful thing evolves. And we'll see where it goes. And I like the organic evolution of it. It's beautiful. And anything that I haven't asked you today that you really wish I had, that you think would be powerful to get across or to share with a group of, often, most of the people who listen to this podcast are founders of, $1 to $20 million businesses. They're all trying to scale up. They're keen to learn. They don't think they know everything. Is there anything else that you wish I'd asked you or would like to share?
I think we're pretty good. It's I could go on for a long time, about so many lessons. But I think a lot of people know as well what they need to do to, you often have a good idea of what you've got to do. You just got to go and do it. Your intuition. If you take the time to listen to your gut and your intuition, usually, a lot of the answers are there. Especially once you've got to that point in your business. Like for me when I was younger, like probably not, because I didn't have any skills to look back on. But yeah, it's amazing if you trust your gut, your heart, your intuition, usually you know what to do. And then if you've got someone like this, even like the founders mastermind that you're talking about, groups, peers to talk to, like sometimes it's a lonely journey, being a business owner or entrepreneur often is, especially if you're the only one, you don't have any co-founders, etc. Having, trusting yourself, having good peers around you, it's so important.
It's super critical. Actually, I remember, just as a side note on that, I remember when I got interviewed for my first CEO role, and one of the great questions was they ran through a list of like potential issues. Okay, something goes wrong, you've got to sack 75% of the workforce. Who are you going to turn to? We go through a major financial crisis. I don't know, we're going to break our banking covenants. Who are you going to talk to? Who's going to be your support? Like, where are you going to get your wisdom from? Because actually the assumption wasn't you're the CEO, you're going to know everything. The assumption was the best founders and the best leaders know who they're going to tap into. They have the network, they have the resources to actually solve the problem, help them solve problems, because it's not like they're ever going to know everything. The ones who succeed faster are the ones who can get the answers from somewhere, whether it's internal or external, and keep moving forward. Ant, thank you so much, man. I'd love to just acknowledge the 14-year journey that you've been on to get to Solamoré. I'm so excited for you that the business is scaling and taking off, and it's such a sort of nod to you and the way that you built your life and the way that you live, who you are authentically, and the passion that you have for what you do. It's so attractive to people. And if people wanted to get in touch with you or follow along with the Solamoré journey, how would they do that?
Just have a Google of Solamoré.events. It's Solamoré.events. Oh yeah, Solamoré, Solamore. The amore is love, Yeah.
Beautiful. Ant Botica, thank you so much for your time today. Folks, I really hope you enjoyed today and you took some inspiration. If you're going through any of the hard slog, hey, maybe you're in the parallel of, one of Ant's 14 years prior to the thing, it's taking off and all the pieces, the ingredients coming together. So don't sweat it. Stay firm, stay committed, and keep hustling. Thanks very much, and we'll speak to you again very soon. Thanks, Ant. The team here at ScaleHQ hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Now, if you want to achieve scale, but you want to know what's going to hold you back, we can help. Head over to scalehq.com.au/growth score to get your free 9-page growth score report. That's going to help you understand where your top 3 barriers are to scale. And if you'd like, we'll even do a free debrief on the report for you with no obligations or expectations, just lots of value from some CEOs who've scaled to help you on your journey. That's scalehq.com.au/growth score. And find out what's holding you back from fulfilling the potential of your business today.